necessarily come away with that impression having heard them. So, but what I wanted to do was stress improvisation, because I feel that people who play music beyond, shall we say, a category, or well, most categories are used as marketing tools, but I find that well, I've been alive for a while, so I found that most of the people who are doing things that don't fall into those categories are having a real hard time in life. And so I want to embrace the people who are playing music that isn't necessarily avant-garde, because I don't just like avant-garde music, but I think music that can't be played anywhere else, rock clubs, jazz clubs, fusion bars, whatever, and people who improvise, those are the people I'm interested in.
Well, it was interesting when you came into the studio. I know you're picking up all the 45s. Oh, look, Jones' new 45, and you know, all around being aware of all types of music. So that's I think that's pretty important.
I'm a fan. What can I say?
Yeah, aren't we all?
Yeah.
Let's play some more music. I'd like to ask you more about other bands in LA that play around in the studio and that are involved in Coma and stuff like that. So,
okay,
what do you want to play next?
I can answer some of these things. Let's do something that. Can you put up a CD?
Sure.
It'll be the quickest thing to do probably here. I have unfortunately a lot of cumbersome cassettes in my hand because we have impending releases. This would be a very short duet with a vocalist of considerable avant-garde. I'm trying to find, here it is, track 10. It's called More Bleeding Icons. It's an improvised duet with Bonnie Barnett from her CD Delay in Gravity on the Nine Winds label. And this may throw you for a loop, I guess.
Okay, hopefully everybody else too. This is Nels Cline, in-studio guest, 88.9 FM KUCI in Irvine, California. I better do a little public service announcement here. This message is for every woman out there who is at risk of getting breast cancer, which is every woman with the sound of my voice. Within the sound of my voice, not with the sound of my voice. That would be scary. Don't put off having a mammogram because you're afraid of what you'll find or because you think you can't afford it. The Komen Race for the Cure has good news. 92% of early detected breast cancer is curable. And the Breast Cancer Early Detection Program is making mammograms available free to women over 40 with limited financial resources. To find out if you are eligible, call the Komen Race for the Cure at 714-496-5624. Again, this is Arbitrary Habitats, Wednesday night, 9:15. I've got Nels Cline in the studio interview. He's going to stick around as long as he's having fun, I hope. And we're going to play some music by him right now. You heard him announce it. I'm not going to try and repeat it because I don't have the CD cover in my hand, but here it is, Nels Cline.
Track 10, yeah.
Okay, you want to describe that piece again? The name of it?
More Bleeding Icons, an improvised duet with Bonnie Barnett.
It was nice. And when was that recorded?
Last year.
Last year?
I don't remember specifically when. I'm sure the information's here somewhere. In fact,
recent.
let's look at it. It was recorded April of last year.
Okay. And is this recorded still at the same place?
No, this was recorded in Eagle Rock by Scott Frazier, who's an excellent recordist and also does live sound most of his life right now with the Kronos Quartet, and who's a musician in his own right as well.
It's pretty high-end stuff.
It's in his house. It's really
no,
nice.
I mean the work he's doing.
Oh yes, absolutely. He's been doing all kinds of really high quality projects for many years. A fixture in L.A.
So you use different studios for your 45s then. Will you re-record those if they go to CD when they go to CD or?
Well, no. That's a really weird question. They probably won't go to CD unless someone does some sort of licensing deal. I think they'll just stay in the vinyl format. I try not to. I try to keep the singles. Everything is different. In other words, if we ever repeat a track, it'll be completely different. A completely different version. For example, the B-side of a 45 we can actually play later has a piece called The Right, which has Mike Watt playing bass, and it's a very what can I say, high energy version of the piece. And then this unreleased album that we have called Chest has a version of the piece as well that's completely different. It's very quiet and pretty much like a jazz ballad for the most part. So when we do repeat material in recorded material, it tends to be completely different. For example, there's a piece called Rumpus Room on our upcoming CD, and it's live at the Alligator Lounge. It's 9 minutes, whereas the version on our first 45 is 1.5 minutes. And it's solid noise, and that's it. Just we freak, and then it's over. That we don't really engage in a lot of diverse kinds of interaction. It was basically pedal to the metal for 1.5 minutes was the concept. Throwing springs and twirling knobs as fast as I could for 1.5 minutes. Just to get a manic effect.
Right. Well, I notice on your cassettes, I mentioned this to you earlier, that I like the artwork that's on it. So you're involved, you do the artwork, you're involved in the whole process of...
Well, sometimes, yeah. Most of the time, I try to be. It's more fun for me to do it for other people. It's harder for me to do it for my own things because I have too many associations in my head. But I've done a couple of... I do a lot of collages on flyers because I feel more comfortable doing that because they end up getting thrown away. I don't sign them or anything. It's just an outlet. I think the only actual CD cover I've done was for the G.E. Stinson Group release on 9 Winds, the collage.
Now, G.E. Stinson used to be with Shadowfax, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was
but don't remind him.
He doesn't like that association at all. Huh?
No, I'm not at the moment.
Oh, okay. Well, we won't go ahead and get into that then.
It's sort of a sour experience after a while. Very successful for a while, though,
right.
too.
Saw them at the Coach House.
They were originally a blues band out of Chicago.
Watercourse Way was their first one on Passport.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Or at least the American
I didn't
version.
know him then. I've known him, I guess, I don't even know how many years, but since he moved out here, they were still in Chicago at that time.
Yeah, that was in '76, I think that was released. Yeah, that's a completely different album than there we go. Than the stuff that came later on
Windham Hill.
Windham Hill,
which frankly I have really not heard. I really we met through a fellow named Adam Rudolph, percussionist, and actually G.E. and I are in a band together now for the last couple of years where he sings, and in the band I brought a cassette of that stuff too. That's called 1,000 Other Names, and features a vocalist named Karu as well as G.E. and Brad Dutz playing electronic samples and various ethnic percussion instruments, for want of a better term.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I wish we could play out more. There's so much gear for Brad, especially in this group, that playing clubs and just playing for 45 minutes is a little bit too labor intensive for him.
For the return.
Yeah. at the moment.
Yeah.
But stay tuned. We'll be playing at Luna Park in the fall. So
why don't you tell people where Alligator Lounge is and what the hours are and all that stuff real quick?
The Alligator Lounge is in Santa Monica. It's at 3321 Pico Boulevard near Centinela. It's right near the freeway exit, Centinela and the 10 there, so you can't miss it. And we hit on Mondays at about 8:30, and there are 3 groups each evening, with only a few exceptions. For example, Charles Gale will be bringing in a trio. He's the saxophonist from New York of considerable repute these days, free jazz, as it were. And we'll be opening for Charles, and he'll play 2 sets. So basically 2 acts, but still 3 sets. And it's $6.
Yeah, it's cheap for what you get.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap. It'll be $8 for Charles because he's on the road, and I like to try to. It's a door gig for him. I mean, for everybody. We're not getting rich, so in fact, I lose money monthly on the mailings, but that's part of my own martyr trip, I suppose. You know, what the hell?
Yeah.
I believe in this.
Yeah, that's great. Can you describe what's on the cassette deck right now?
Okay, this is a piece called Sister Hotel. It's a suite in 4 movements. It features my trio, Michael Preissner on drums, Bob Mayer on bass, and it's from the still unreleased recording, which I call Chest, which was supposed to come out on a local label that I will not name, who basically bailed out and for bizarre business reasons, and we won't get into that. So I have another one coming out. We'll play some tracks from. That'll come out that was recorded a month ago. It's coming out really fast. But this is from last year, Sister Hotel, suite in 4 movements.
What's the instrumentation on it?
Just guitar, bass, and drums. And recorded live with 1 guitar overdub, where I like to double the guitar parts. Everything else you hear will be live.
Okay, great. If you're just listening in, this is KUCI 88.9 FM in Irvine, California, transmitting from Irvine College. No, not Irvine Valley College. University of California, Irvine. I've got in-studio guest Nels Cline, and the show goes till midnight, so you may want to stick around. There's going to be lots more talk and music. Music right now. KUCI. Okay, 88.9 FM, KUCI, Irvine, California. This is Arbitrary Habitats. My name's Fred. I'm going to be here till midnight. I've got Nels Cline with me in the studio. We're going to feature an interview with him and a lot of his music that he selected to bring in and share with everybody. Could you go ahead and describe that tune again, or the title? And
Okay, it's called Sister Hotel. It's from an unreleased album called Chest, and it's a suite in 4 movements, essentially, which actually have titles, but, you know.
And this features the current lineup of the trio?
Yes, everything that you'll hear tonight from the trio will be Bob Mayer on bass, Michael Preissner on drums.
Okay, and there was one other configuration before this.
Correct. Mark London Sims was our original bass player. He did the Silencer CD with us and also our first single and half of our second single.
And that's the gentleman that played with Dark.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Yes, Dark, and let's see, there was he did some other recording as well. But anyway, he played a lot with, he played with Don Cherry on a record, one of those A&M records, and also with David Cherry, Don's son, quite a bit in a group called the Beyond Video Group.
I just saw Don Cherry in New York about a month ago. It's interesting.
Wow. Was he okay?
No, he wasn't okay.
Yeah,
I was wondering what was going on. Do you know what?
Yeah.
No. Anyway, it was his. The people behind him were amazing, though.
Yeah, I heard about this gig.
Oh God, it was amazing. They had a tuba bass player. He was playing tuba, and it was just amazing.
I remember. I can't remember his name. He plays in Henry Threadgill's group, Very Circus, that tuba player.
It's a remarkable evening.
Yeah, Threadgill's band had him and another tuba player, and it was, he's a great player, very energetic, really grooves.
Yeah.
Yeah, Don's having a lot of trouble with his teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
That's not good for trumpet players.
It was a good show, though. Nonetheless, it was good to get down to the Village and see him.
Right.
It was.
Right.
You know, somebody I'd listened to through the '70s and everything. You know, with
all that stuff, Ornette, all the, up to Eternal Now and all that. It's the Swedish sort of Bengt-Berger ethnic period is really beautiful, and then of course the A&M records where he came back with some really amazing straight ahead playing and
the stuff he did with Michael Mantler and those people.
Right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, Escalade Over the Hill.
Right.
AIR, Carla Bley composition. Great side, whatever side that is of that record. I can't remember.
Well, while we're on it, so how did you get into music as a young man or a boy?
Well, I was a boy. I was about 10. It's kind of I'm not sure exactly. My folks weren't listening to the kind of music I wanted to listen to, although they did listen to a lot of light opera stuff, classic show tunes, Ella Fitzgerald with Nelson Riddle arrangements, maybe Verve, that stuff. But I think I have a twin brother who plays drums, so most of my musical experience I was sharing immediately with this other person who was just obsessed about music as I was, right? So we were feeding off of each other's excitement about music, and so I think surf music seemed like very cool to us at a certain age, at about age 10 or 9.
Was this out in California?
Yeah, I'm from West LA.
Okay.
So, it certainly it had the tough atmosphere that we were thinking we could be cool and ride our skateboards and hear that twangy guitar thing, and then immediately we thought that was Nowheresville. When we heard, I heard the Byrds. We used to hang out with these guys who all listened to Turn, Turn, Turn by the Byrds all the time. And so I think that was the first rock band that I identified with and I emulated in some ways, wanted to dress like them and everything. It was very silly. And my brother got really into the Rolling Stones. And so until Jimi Hendrix, we were kind of a Byrds and Stones kind of combination. Then once Hendrix came along, we were devastated, so by that time I knew I was going to play. I was also really interested in Indian music because our this teacher in what grade would this be? I don't know. I was about 10 or 11. We had an India unit. They used to do Mexico, Japan. Each semester there'd be a different country you'd study in elementary school, and you'd have little crafts and do all kinds of whatever.
Draw the maps.
Yeah, the whole bit. And so we had an India unit, and I really identified with the Indian music of Ravi Shankar that she played us. I really loved it. And at that time Ravi Shankar had a sitar school, actually an Indian music college, but I think it was mostly sitar here in LA, and this was 66, I think. And I thought of taking up the sitar until I read his autobiography, and he describes his early days as a student and of course, anybody here is not going to get the incredible, the intense kind of pain and agony of what it takes to learn an instrument in India in the old classical tradition. You know, it's very, very harsh.
Yeah.
Yes, the discipline's intense. And I just said, forget it. There's no way. You know, no one's going to like the fact I'm playing it anyway, so I won't be cool. And at the same time, I'll be in pain, and I'll end up probably humiliated. So I thought I should not pick up the sitar. Instead, I just pretended I could play the guitar for about 2 years, you know, until I met a guitarist who was really good. And then we had a band, and I learned a lot from him. His name was Bill Watts, and he could play, you know, Eric Clapton solos note for note, and I was really impressed.
And Bill Watts still around in your life then?
No, I don't know where he is.
Oh, really? Oh,
I haven't seen him since junior
Maybe
high
it was
school.
Mike Watt.
No, Mike Watt. Mike Watt is somebody I've more recently actually gotten to know, even though he's been around and I've admired him for years. Yeah, a great bass player. Yeah, Bill Watts is somewhere in the Midwest, probably playing in a really good bar band, because that's what he was doing. You can make a living playing in certain kinds of bands in the Midwest. You just play a different place each night in a little circuit, and he can make enough to live on.
Yeah.
But
and you didn't follow him to the Midwest?
No, I was, by the time I had learned a few Clapton licks or whatever, by that time my brother and I heard John Coltrane, and we were and Miles, and so we were off on a path to insanity at that point, I would say, and got into our own. So what I'm saying is basically there was no one that we were emulating that we knew at that time who was into music. We sort of were groping in the dark. I lost the thread there talking about other musicians because I love to, but we were groping in the dark, just buying records that looked cool, you know. It was like, you know, listening to Blue Cheer and Quicksilver Messenger Service, Jefferson Airplane, that kind of stuff. And then we heard Coltrane, then we didn't know what to do, so we just tried to do what we could do, which was play instrumental music with solos that was interesting. Oh yeah, they say, that's what they say. There's lore that Jim McGuinn was very hot on Coltrane. Actually, is a guitarist that I played with in a group called Block for a number of years described that solo as being, you know, a guy on acid thinking about Coltrane, and I think that pretty much
sums it up.
It's a great solo. And in fact, I used to play 12-string, electric 12-string for years, but my electric 12-string's so trashed, and I can't really afford to buy another one, so I love the electric 12-string ever since, well, I guess he's Roger McGuinn these days.
Yeah. When was the first time that you actually played out, quote unquote, seriously?
Seriously?
I mean, with the new style. I mean, not the.
I don't know. I mean, we played in high school in a band. Actually, the drummer in my trio now was a percussionist in the band, and my brother played drums, and a fellow named Lee Kaplan played electronic boxes and electric bass, and we had all original music, and it was instrumental music, and we had solos, and that was what we did. I've been doing it since probably the 10th grade.
Great.
Yeah.
So what do you want to listen to next?
Which doesn't mean it was good, by the way. What should we hear next? Let's hear a track by Vinnie Golia Quintet, a local woodwind player that I play with. This is a new CD. We can play the last track because it's kind of a grooving tune. Number 7, Turk's Groove. And I think that this is very unusual for Vinnie in that it's a grooving number, Turk's Groove, a tune he had written for a movie that he scored that is called Blood and Concrete. And we did Billy Mintz, the brilliant drummer on this, did an amazing groove, and we just played it without rehearsal, straight to tape, and that's what's on here. And it just fades out because we ran out of time on the CD's 74 minutes long, so I think Vinnie pushed the technology, so it just ends with a really abrupt fade out. Whoops.
And what year is this?
This was recorded this year. Let's see, earlier this year. This one came out fast. No, it wasn't. It was October 93. It just came out about a month ago.
We were talking earlier about the availability of these things. Are most of these pretty difficult to find?
I wish I could answer that question. I think Vinnie's distribution, I'm sorry, Vinnie, I know you can't hear this, but I think Vinnie's distribution is pretty bad. So I don't think a lot of jazz buyers and record stores know to order records like this. I don't think their budgets, they'd have a hard time saying, hey, Mr. Big, I really think we need that Vinnie Golia CD, and I think we need maybe even more than one. Somebody's going to eventually say, you're crazy. You could order it, is what I'm saying, but they probably won't automatically order it, I don't think.
There's no smaller stores like...
I would say Pooh Bah in Pasadena is the best place to get any of this music. That's really, and it's not just... I don't even really get to go there very often because of where I live, and I actually have a bizarre little accidental circuit that I sort of follow. Rockaway's another good place. But no, actually, at Pooh Bah, they like this kind of music, and they know to order it, and they'll order it for you, and